ball is tipped, and there you are. You're running for your life. You're a shooting star, and all the years, no one knows just how hard you worked. But now it shows. In one shining moment, it's all on the line. In one shining moment, they're frozen in time. But time is short, and the road is long. In the blinking of an eye, that moment's gone. And when it's done, win or lose, you always did your best. 'Cause inside you knew that in one shining moment you reached deep inside. One shining moment you knew you were alive. Feel the beat of your heart, feel the wind in your face. It's more than a contest, it's more than a race. And when it's done, win or lose, you always did your best. 'Cause inside you knew, in one shining moment you reached for the sky. In one shining moment you knew, yeah. In one shining moment you're willing to try. In one shining moment you knew. One shining moment.
It's when tickets get punched. It's when bubbles burst.
It's no good.
It's when underdogs become household names. Get your pencils and paper ready, folks. It's that time of year again. It's college basketball's Christmas. 68 teams competing for one common goal. All the blood, sweat, and tears.
Incognito's gonna.
The sacrifice.
Oh my goodness.
The heartbreak. It all culminates in the single greatest sporting event on the planet.
Gonna drive. Oh my God.
140 days.
Oh, talk about a risky play.
200,000 minutes of college basketball has all led to this.
Turner.
It's time to dance.
Gonzaga.
Where Cinderella's slipper still fits. Where David can beat Goliath.
Do you believe it?
Where the impossible becomes reality. Buckle up, America, and welcome to Selection Sunday.
What is good, CSBA? Welcome to the CSBA March Madness Season 11 Selection Show. What is good, everybody? Hope everybody is doing fine on this Wednesday afternoon, or Wednesday evening, excuse me. You got a whole crew with us here tonight. You got Zay. What's up, Zay?
What's up, CSBA?
We got C-Web in the top right. What's up, C-Web? We got Rise down in the left-hand corner. What up, Rise?
What's going on? What's going on?
And we got our man, Mr. Rick Mort, down in the right-hand corner. What's up, Morty?
What's going on, CSPA? Let's get this popping.
Yeah, we're excited. We're going to jump right into this. Sorry for being a few minutes late. Just wanted to make sure all the technical things were good. But I'm super pumped for this selection show, and we're going to jump right into it while the water is while the water is warm. I'm looking for one thing that I may not have put in here. Okay, that's all right. I didn't do it. There's so many things. All right, it is what it is. We'll jump into the first team. Their number one overall seed in the CSBA in this March Madness selection show, and congratulations to the 9-1 Gonzaga Bulldogs. The Bulldogs with a phenomenal season. We'll break them down a little bit later, but there is your first number one overall seed. The Bulldogs solid in the West Coast Conference this season. No surprise to anybody. The Bulldogs topping out on the number one seed. We are going to jump now strictly right into the number two seed, and we have some analysis on these games, so just be patient for that as we go along here. But coming in as your number two seed, and we'll talk again about the number one seeds at the very tail end of the selection show here. But we're going to jump into the first round matchups, and as your number two seed in the Western region, it is going to be the Kansas Jayhawks. The Jayhawks finishing their season 7-3, and they are going to take on in the first round the Ohio State Buckeyes. Coming in as the number 7 seed at 2-8 on the season. We're going to break that game down right now. Just give me a second to actually pull up that graphic. There it is. And, I like, before we jump in and give Rise the floor here on this matchup, I like this Ohio State-Kansas game a lot. I think the Buckeyes with Braxton McFadden, if he gets hot, we've seen him do it this season a bunch of times. He's pretty much carried the Buckeyes on a lot of runs, so I could easily see Ohio State upsetting the Jayhawks. Kansas, despite being 7-3 on the season, have had some speed bumps along the way, but have looked inconsistent for most of the season. Is Ace Lord the answer? Definitely a game I'm extremely interested in seeing the outcome of. But Rise, what's your take on this Kansas?
100% here. Wired. I want to call to attention one of the first games I've ever commentated in CSBA was Wired said, and I quote, Ohio State will not make March Madness. What happened?
Calling me out. I love it.
I'm calling him out for spring. But yeah, so I think honestly this might be, and you're looking in the eyes of Kansas, this might be the best case scenario for him and Ace Lord, provided, Braxton McFadden, their Ohio State's best player by far, is contained in this game. However, if he is not contained, I see Ohio State winning this.
Yeah, McFadden I think is a very big piece to the puzzle here. I think Ohio State goes as he goes. We've seen Ohio State really rally. They did a nice job getting to the finals in the Big Ten tournament. So
that was the next point I was going to bring up, how amazing they did in that Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, they just did a phenomenal job. And I'm not saying Kansas is any slouch, but I think Kansas has hit some speed bumps along the way. Any more thoughts on this game before we jump into the 3-6?
I'm just good luck to both teams. Maybe we'll see a massive upset.
All right, coming in as your number 3 seed in the Western region, that's going to be your South Carolina Gamecocks. The Gamecocks coming in at 5-5 on the season from the SEC. And they are going to take on the 2-7 ACC North Carolina Tar Heels. So a matchup of Carolina in this first round. The Gamecocks all season have ridden on the backs of Penny Dimes. I can see them easily doing this in the first round matchup against the Tar Heels. North Carolina has been inconsistent to say the least. But can the combination of Steve Carter Jr. or Bo Cola prove to be the difference? We'll have to see. If they can keep Penny Dimes locked down, it can be an early. If not, it could be an early exit for North Carolina. What's your take on this 3-6 matchup between South Carolina and North
I
Carolina?
gotta agree with you here. I think the Gamecocks do take this, just based on depth and the man named Penny Dimes, especially. However, don't let that fool you though. South Carolina rolls too deep in almost every spot, so UNC starters definitely score more individually.
Oh, sorry, I need to bring up that graphic.
But I do not see North Carolina winning this game.
Yeah, here's your graphic. I mean, you can see Penny Dimes 24.3 points per game. I think if they can figure out a way to contain him, North Carolina could pull off the upset here. But I think it'll be a good matchup nonetheless. I mean, you can see Bo Cola averaging 17, almost 17 points per game on 42% beyond the arc. But any other breakdown on this?
There's not much I can break down here, but I hope Penny Dimes does show out and makes the next second round.
Yeah, he was really good in the tournament. I'm curious to see what he's able to do here against the North Carolina squad, and I'm looking forward to that one. And we got one more matchup here in the West region. Obviously, as we talked about Gonzaga being the number one seed, they get a bye in the first round because we have 28 teams this season. But let's jump into the 4-5 matchup coming in at 5-5. The number 4 seed, the Florida State Seminoles, and they're going to take on the number 5 seed coming in at 4-5 out of the Pac-12, the Washington Huskies. So 4-5, Florida State, Washington. Both these teams this season have ridden the roller coaster. A lot of ups and downs all season long. Big wins, tough losses, and some head-scratching moments, to say the least. Which, as I kind of wrote this down, will the real Slim Shady, Drascourt Wiesla show up? Will Dobbins dominate the way he's capable of? Will the trio of Sage Sarmiento everywhere, Will Marshall, show that dominance that they showed early on in the season? This definitely is going to be a coin flip game for me. No surprise, this is a 4-5 matchup, just the way we like to see him. But, talk to me a little bit about this Florida State-Washington matchup.
So let's talk about it. I think you did bring up a good point, Drascourt Vigilance. Sage Sarmiento is going to be definitely a number one matchup, even though both have just decided not to show up in these big games. But I think the man to watch is everywhere, who is outscoring the starting FSU backcourt by himself. 16 points a game for him to Florida State's 14.5. And, I believe in Florida State. I love them. I think this is going to be an unpredictable matchup. Give me Washington.
Let's take a look at the West bracket as it lays out. So obviously we talked about Gonzaga getting a bye in the first round. Florida State, Washington, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kansas, and Ohio State. Obviously I would love to hear the rest of the panel's just thoughts on this West. See, Webb, any additional thoughts or feedback here on this Western Conference? I obviously know Gonzaga is your team here, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the rest of the rundown of this conference.
Yeah, so obviously, with it being my team, I have a lot of thoughts as to how I'd like it to go. Let's say that versus how it could go. Yeah, Florida State, Washington. That's going to be a great game. Pretty unpredictable. As Rise alluded to, who's going to show up, who isn't going to show up in this game. Both of those teams have been a little hit or miss here on the season with that. And then I'm actually excited. I really hope South Carolina and Kansas make it through. I think that's going to be a great second round matchup if it happens. So I'm really excited for that personally.
Let me hear your thoughts and opinions, Mort, on this, and then I'll go to Zay as well. Obviously, because Zay has also got his hand on getting to see what and who he's going to play here in the first round. But Mort, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts here.
Well, the first big thing that I saw when the bracket is revealed is that Florida State and Washington. That's going to be a huge game. I know Florida State has some dogs, has some players on that squad. They beat Duke twice. So it's going to be tough going up against Washington. But Washington has Sacramento, who's probably going to be able to shut them down a little bit. But watch out for a big matchup on the Florida State and Washington.
Yeah, and Zay, your thoughts on South Carolina, North Carolina. Obviously, you're getting to see that you get to stay against your Carolina rival there. What's your thoughts on your matchup there, and obviously anything else additional on the West?
First of all, we're 6-4, not 5-5. I was talking about in the chat.
My apologies.
But regardless of that, I love this Carolina matchup. I'm ironically a Duke fan and realize for the fact that we get to hopefully take down UNC in the process. That's also
I blame G Hart, by the way, that the record is wrong because that's what was listed, I believe, in the bracket. Anyway, keep going, but finish your thought there.
But yeah, but regardless of all that, getting to play hopefully if we can make it through round one, getting to play Kansas round two. I know Ace was looking to play me again because I know we played, I think 1 or 2 seasons prior. I took that one, but I know if we end up matching up in the second round, I know he's gonna be happy about that. So
yeah, friends playing friends teams is tough, but unfortunately it does happen that way. But what were we gonna say?
But I like this bracket though. With everything we have, that Florida State Washington matchup, that's a rematch from last season as well when those two played each other. I think Florida State took that one, so definitely getting their hands at a redemption arc here, playing Florida State again, and got a little more depth this time around, so they could definitely take that one. Those 4 or 5 matches were usually kind of scary, but yeah, I like this bracket. I like this bracket a lot.
Yeah, I like the way it shaped out, and certainly the selection committee did a good job.
Since I'm on the screen, I gotta hit it. Always shy, baby. Ohio State all the way.
I was trying to put together what you were doing there. I was like, what is he doing? Now I got it. Totally picking up what you were doing. All right, let's jump ahead to our next number 1 seed as we head to the Southern region. Our next number 1 seed coming out of the SEC. The Kentucky Wildcats. Wildcats had a solid season, 8-2 on the season. Played phenomenal. We'll talk a little bit more about them on the back end, obviously. But congratulations to them earning themselves the number 1 seed out of the Southern region. Let's jump ahead to our number 2 seed coming out of the ACC. And that is going to be the Virginia Tech Hokies. Hokies finished at 7-3 on the season, earning themselves a number 2 seed. Obviously, that is your reigning national champions. So they were number 1 last year, gone on a magical ride of undefeated season. And they, this season, will take on in the first round as a 2 seed, the 2-7 out of the Pac-12 Stanford Cardinals. So Virginia Tech, Stanford in this one. Stanford has been up and down all over the place this season. Their defense has been shoddy to say the least. But when the offense shows up, look out. However, this Virginia Tech team is definitely built different. Last year's national champions, as I mentioned, lots of weapons. The Hokies should roll in this one, but if Stanford could get Just Blaze or Cornbread Maxwell to go off, it could be anyone's game. But the South region is covered by Uze. What's your thoughts on this Virginia Tech Stanford first round matchup?
I think you covered it pretty well for the most part. That's going to be a battle of the bigs down low with Blaylock and Palatine. I know Palatine's always been like a very prominent player. Just going with him and Da Vinci in that front court, that's really going to be tough for Blaylock to be able to take down, at least by his lonesome. You're going to need some help from some of the other Cardinals there in order to be able to take down a strong team like Virginia Tech looking to defend their title.
Yeah, the Cardinals definitely going to have to step up and play one of their better games this season. They have some of the depth to do it. I think if there was a 7 seed coming out of this tournament that was going to be able to do that, and they have some weapons between, I mentioned Just Blaze, Cornbread Maxwell, we talked a little bit about Stacey Blaylock. I can see easily Stanford putting a little bit of a scare into Virginia Tech. They're probably one of the better 7 seeds, but again, it's all depending on which team shows up. We've seen a very turbulent year from them. Let's jump ahead to the 3-6 matchup coming out of the Big 12, 7-3 on the season. The Houston Cougars. Cougars, a phenomenal season out of the Big 12. They are going to take on the West Coast Conference, the number 6 seed, the UNLV Running Rebels. So 7-3 Houston Cougars taking on the UNLV Running Rebs. This is a good, I think a good game. I think the Rebels, though, I think have had a very up and down season, very topsy-turvy to say the least. But fourth quarter has been their nemesis all season long. If they can come out of the gate and surprise Houston early, maybe give up a big early lead, maybe get Al Ingram going off early, Houston I could see potentially stumbling, but they are very deep, this Cougars team. Between Incognito and Flint Jr., I don't see a positive outcome here for UNLV, but hey, that's why we play the games, right, Zay?
Right. Yeah, we talked about Houston sliding a bit from seasons past, but yeah, they're still a pretty complete team going into this, and still pretty deadly at the 3 seed. Yeah, like we talked about, UNLV, the fourth quarter specifically just been their enemy. If they start out, like, I think the best way to take down Houston just to be able to start out strong, which they can. They just need to be able to execute and finish.
Yeah, certainly if they can build up a big enough lead, maybe put a little bit. And we've seen that happen once or twice to Houston this season where they fell behind early because they struggled. Did make comebacks in those games, but there were a couple that obviously having 3 losses on the season certainly played a factor into them getting a 3 seed here this season. But I do see Houston kind of being a little bit of a deeper team here, especially as we've seen Bubba Ray Diddle, starting to kind of come on late in the season. Let's jump into our next matchup. It is the 4-5, and it's a doozy. The number 4 seed out of the Big East, the 5-5 Providence Friars. Friars, solid season in the Big East, and they are going to take on the 3-6 Iowa Hawkeyes in a classic 4-5 matchup. If you look at this, a lot of people might say 3-6 Iowa Hawkeyes. How is that even possible? Coming in as the 5 seed, Iowa probably had the hardest strength of schedule from what I've seen. Despite the 3 wins, comes in as a 5. Strong marks for a team that only had 3 wins. But Iowa was solid all season long, if I'm going to be completely honest. Just they were just tough turning the tide on some of those games, getting the wins. So here they sit with Lance Kabongo and the Friars in their way. So it looks like another strength of schedule game for them, kind of bearing fruit again, and going to be another difficult one for Iowa. But the Friars are beatable, provided they can keep Kabongo in check. But what's your thoughts here? Do you see Ganakis going off, or is that do you see any other matchups within this game that might push either Iowa or Providence to the victory column?
Yeah, I like this matchup. Again, we're going through the front court with Kabongo, McFondle, and then you have the underside. You have Ganakis and Cobb there as well. I think both those front courts are really going to have to go at each other for that one. I feel as though Iowa has slightly more depth than Providence, especially since they rely a little bit on Kabongo and his scoring. But if one of these teams kind of edges out, then they should be able to take this one. I see this one going either way.
Yeah, I mean, this is for a 3-6 matchup. This is a pretty tight one. Here's a little bit of a breakdown of the South Conference being played out of Memphis, Tennessee, Kentucky, the 1, Virginia Tech, 2, 3 being Houston, 4 being Providence, then Iowa, then UNLV, then Stanford as your 7 seed. So that's kind of your breakdown on the South region. We'll go through the crew here. Rise, talk to me a little bit about the Southern region. What stands out for you? Is there any matchups that you really like?
I'm going to say it, and I keep seeing it in the chat. Providence, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge the fact that I think Providence can take this all the way. I also see a very good Houston team that I think can also has something to prove.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of people in the Houston squad that are probably wishing they were seated a little higher, especially at 7-3. C-Web, really quick, Mort, tell me your guys' thoughts on this brackets and anything that we should keep an eye out for.
Providence, Iowa. That's probably one of my top 3 games of the first round right there. I mean, I feel like that one could go to overtime. Just to be completely honest, those two teams match up really well, and if all four of those bigs that Zay mentioned show up, it's going to be a vicious battle down there. And maybe foul trouble is going to be the thing that gets one team the advantage.
Mort, what's your thoughts? Any games that stand out for you? Anything you think we should keep our eyes on? You've called a lot of games this season, Mort, so I know you've seen a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I'd say the big thing would probably be Houston and UNLV. I mean, it's just practically gonna be Peter Packer, but don't let out on UNLV with Buddy Blunt. He's probably going to try to back down on Peter Packer a little bit more, and if Al Ingram starts to shoot as much as he's supposed to, then it's pretty much going to be a hard-fought battle. But just depends on who's going to come out first.
Yeah, for sure. I think both these teams are going to be coming out shooting the ball, shooting the rock pretty quickly. Appreciate you guys' breakdown. Just a heads up, everybody. The next one is going to be the fourth number 1 seed revealed before the number 3. I just put it in wrong, so I apologize. I did not have time to redo it. So the fourth number 1 seed, which is really the third number 1 seed, coming out of the East region, it is going to be if I can find them on the sheet here, it's going to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. So the Razorbacks comes in as the fourth number 1. Again, we've only announced 3, and you're wondering why. The reason why I'm sharing it again is because it's out of order in the graphical for the brackets. But with that said, 7-2 out of the SEC, solid season. Congratulations to the Arkansas Razorbacks, the number 4, number 1 seed within. So we've got Gonzaga, Kentucky, and Arkansas so far. Pretty surprising to see the Razorbacks as a number 1. I did not have them here, but the selection committee did. And speaking of not number 1, who I actually thought should have been the number 1, it's actually your number 2 seed, the Arizona State's Sun Devils. And the Sun Devils are going to take on, out of the Big East, 3-6 on the season, the Georgetown Hoyas. We get to see this matchup again in the first round. Super excited for it. I saw ASU as a number 1 seed personally, but the committee saw it going a different way. But just from the body of work this season, many might argue, they should be a 2, a 1. But regardless, the Sun Devils have had a very solid season and are a very deep team. Georgetown, maybe not as deep, but they've either been in all on their games or completely out, have been blown out. So they're currently riding a losing streak into the tournament. I think it might be 6 or 7 games right now. This doesn't necessarily look as a good matchup for them. But if they can return to their early season magic, maybe they can shock the Sun Devils. To me, ASU is too deep, but the Hoyas will obviously going to try to run on the backs of Mitchell Blockinson here. Talk to me a little bit about this matchup. I believe that's C-Web, right? Yep.
Yep. So, I mean, obviously, only rematch of any game we've seen this season. So we did get a preview of that as ASU handed the Hoyas their first loss after their 2-0 start. Blockinson brings up a good point in chat. They actually did have a 22-8 lead on ASU in that game, and then ASU came back and kind of put their foot on their throat and ended things. I kind of expect ASU to do the same thing. Georgetown's been on a 5-game skid to end the season after starting out 3-1, so their momentum is on the downswing. Whereas Arizona State, like you said, they could have been a 1. They probably got hurt by the 2 losses to Gonzaga toward the end of the season, but I don't really see that as being a huge mark on their record. But Arizona State, Arkansas, very close in terms of where they could have ended up. So, but yeah, I think Arizona State takes this one unless Georgetown pulls out some of that magic dust they had in week 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I mean, and just to reiterate that, a lot of the way, and based on the simulation league and how teams back up and how the things go on, and I'm just going to be blunt with regards to how that is. Georgetown started off the season phenomenal, right? But I know, and then through 11 seasons, it's where you finish with your body of work. And the last 6 games, Georgetown has looked, for the most part, with the exception of maybe 1 game or 2 games in there. I mean, they're on a 6-game losing streak. So it is very hard to put a team like Georgetown, who didn't have I don't think their strength of schedule was phenomenal. I don't think they played well in a lot of the games down the stretch. So I can see why the committee would put them as a 7. And if I'm going to be completely honest, and I'm going to throw this out there, they're technically, because this is the 4th bracket, they are actually, as a 7th seed, the last team to get in. So it's a question mark of who are those other bubble teams. It'll be interesting to see as the selection show goes on here. Let's jump into the next matchup out of the Big Ten on the season, 7-2. I just got to find the graphic. Excuse me for 1 second. 7-2 out of the Big Ten. The number 3 seed, the Michigan Wolverines. We've seen the Michigan Wolverines. They love a 3 seed. We've seen them in this place before, and they're going to take on the number 6 seed, the Richmond Spiders, out of Conference USA. Richmond finishing the season 5-5. As a 3 seed for Michigan, how many seasons have we seen them as a 3 seed? That's crazy. I think they every time they've been a 3 seed, they've won the national title, will have gotten to the Final Four. But we've seen a few slip ups from them this season, I think, which cost them a higher seed despite playing well throughout the season. Certainly a loss to Iowa in the Carrier game and an early exit out of the Big Ten tournament pushed them down to a 3. Will Richmond will their way to a win? Will they push Michigan to the limit? I don't know. This is one of the more interesting 3 versus 6 matchups that I saw that the committee put together. We'll have to see if Vincenzo Buccarati or Gimme That will have anything to say about Michigan's deep squad. But break this game down a little further for me, C-Web.
Yeah, this one definitely could get interesting, as I think it is probably the closest of the 6-3 matchups. Not necessarily because Richmond is the greatest team, but because Michigan just doesn't match up well with some teams. We've seen that a few times already. They slipped up in the Big Ten tournament. They lost to Iowa. They struggled with Texas Tech. I mean, they just haven't looked like a Michigan. They haven't looked like the 3 seed Michigan teams you're talking about. And a big reason that I feel like they could slip up in this is Pedro Jr. The guy's a walking dime machine. Like, he's 6 assists per game. I think he was up to like 8 assists per game at one point.
What was his 3-point shooting for the season was pretty high too, if I remember. It was like near the 50, 60, 70% range, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's actually insanely high, and the reason I didn't put it on here is because no, it's not his 3-point, it's his field goal percentage. His field goal percentage is like 89% or something ridiculous like that. And it, like, if I put it on this graphic, it would have been stupid.
Yeah, no,
I don't know, I guess it's
100%, and
but yeah, the 3-point percent. It's like he missed like 2 shots from out there all season.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the interesting thing will be for me is where do they start him? Do they start him at the 1 or do they start him at the 2? That's one thing. And then the additional piece of the puzzle too is for me is depth. I think Michigan has more depth than Richmond, but Richmond has really had some games this season where they played teams tough. I don't think there was a game where they really got blown out this season, despite sitting at 5-5. They were right there fighting at the end of the season for the Conference USA Championship. So that'll be an interesting matchup. Let's jump ahead to the next matchup. Coming out of the Big Ten, 5-5, Indiana Hoosiers. The Hoosiers with a solid season, winning the Big Ten title, and they are actually going to take on the 5-5 Conference USA Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Love this matchup. I'm actually beyond excited for this Indiana Notre Dame matchup. Ray Seymour has been a junkyard dog the entire season for Notre Dame. He's really carried the Irish this season. Really some big performances out of him. And then Indiana surprised everybody capturing the Big Ten title. I don't think anybody saw that coming. But they've really hit their stride at the right time. Paul Boomer, Dane Jones look to continue their hot run. I'm really interested to see out of these two conflicting styles how they match up. Definitely a hot matchup that I think everybody's going to be keeping an eye on. But see what break this one down for me.
Okay, this probably is the best game of the first round for me. The one I'm most excited. I mean, it's the state of basketball. Indiana versus Indiana right here. Like, you can't get too much bigger than that in terms of like fan bases for basketball. But I Indiana ran through that Big Ten tournament, got that automatic berth, and managed to bring it up to a 4 seed. There was a great run toward the end of the season for them, but Notre Dame has just played, I think, above the level that everybody expected coming into this season, being a new team and not really knowing where they were going to slot in exactly. And both of these teams may be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They got overlooked at times. Indiana came in, won a Big Ten title. Notre Dame took the Conference USA title. So, yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup. And I also, just as a side note, both of these teams are interesting matchups for the number 1 seed, Arkansas, which we'll talk about a little later.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the Eastern region. Again, here it is, Arkansas, the 1. You see Arizona State, the 2, Michigan, the 3, Indiana, the 4, Notre Dame, 5, Richmond, 6, and Georgetown at 7. Interesting thing for me here, and Zay, maybe you would want to comment on this too, but Indiana, despite winning the Big Ten, comes in as the number 4 seed. Do you think that Michigan just winning 7 games had a lot to do with that?
Possibly. I mean, Indiana's a tough one to put, because they came in a little bit on the weaker side, but then they finished really strong. So that 4 seed's definitely deserving. But I know a lot of people are kind of polarizing for that.
Yeah.
I like the matchup though with them and Notre Dame though.
Mort, anything on Arizona State, Georgetown? What's your thoughts on that game?
Well, the Arizona State Georgetown game is pretty much going to be a battle of the bigs and trying to figure out how they're going to stop Blue Kush. They have other players that pretty much helped Arizona State with Jack Haley being the big guy that pretty much gets everything down and Chipper Stone with that 6-man type center role. But it's pretty much going to be, how is Georgetown going to match up with everybody on Arizona State? Because Arizona State practically knows where to shoot, how to shoot, and it's not going to just be Blue Kush every time. So they're going to have to try to shut down the paint and try to figure out how to stop the perimeter from coming in.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, Arizona State has some really good guards. It's a very deep team, certainly deeper than Georgetown. But I think, to your point, if they push it to the paint, there could be some interesting play down low. Maybe some players get into foul trouble. Maybe it mixes up the rotation, something. So definitely something to keep an eye on. How will that affect Arizona State? Will they check it from the cheap seats, and will they be successful? Rise, talk to me a little bit about this this bracket really quick. Anything that you like, any games that you really want to pay attention to or zoom in on?
There is definitely one game that I very much want to pay attention to, and that 4 and 5 seed game, Indiana and Notre Dame. I do believe Indiana should be a little higher after beating Michigan in the tournament. I might be biased because I'm an Ohio State fan, but I do believe in my heart that Indiana should be the 3 seed, but I'm interested to see what comes out of this bracket.
Yeah, it should be an interesting bracket, and there's a lot of talent and a lot of good teams in there, and certainly not an easy road for Arkansas either. So it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out. Speaking of the third, technically the third number 1 seed that should have been before we saw Arkansas there, but we are going to jump into that. And finishing at 9-1 from the Pac-12, to nobody's surprise, with a monster season, the Oregon Ducks. Oregon was phenomenal this season. They really took care of business. I think it's actually a very ironic thing here as we talk about the number 1 seeds. In theory, if Gonzaga didn't transfer to the West Coast Conference, we'd actually have 2 number ones from Pac-12, 2 number ones from SEC. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But huge, great job for the Ducks there. Congratulations to them. We'll talk a little bit more and break down the number 1 seeds here in a minute. But let's jump into some of the matchups coming out of the Big East. Surprise, also another 9-1 team on the season. Don't think anybody saw them coming. But congratulations to the Marquette Golden Eagles, a number 2 seed out of the Big East. And they have a tough matchup here out of the West Coast Conference, despite being 2-7, a team that can compete with anybody. And I'm surprised to see them the way where they finished their season. But 2-7, San Diego State Aztecs in that first round matchup. The Golden Eagles have shocked me this season. I did not anticipate them to have the kind of season they did. I don't think anybody would have expected them sitting here at 9-1 to end the season, but here they are. Many questions around the strength of their schedule, not being as tough as others. The Aztecs have proven to be a tough out for anybody that has played them this year. Certainly got some talent between Jamal Davis, Ryan Winley, Ludwig Friedman. I could definitely see a potential upset here in this 2-7 matchup. Marquette, however, has managed to win despite all the negatives that have been thrown at them this season. C-Web, talk to me a little bit about this matchup. Oh, sorry, this is the Midwest. My apologies. Mort, talk to me a little bit. Sorry, Mort.
Wait a minute, what am I doing?
Sorry, my apologies.
So practically, it's very much going to be Corey Muzikana versus Ludwig Friedman, who's going to be that real big force of nature inside the paint. But then again, they're going to have to get past San Diego State shooting from the outside with Gerald Pope and practically Ralph Lumley, who's pretty much going to be that kind of six-man thing. You're not going to see him for a while, but he's going to be there when you least expect it. And you have Ryan Ridley, who's practically going to help Ludwig Friedman get all them boards. Where's he going to be? So it's pretty much going to be how is Marquette going to face off against that. But you're pretty much going to have Joshi Medici versus Ralph Lumley, and that's pretty much going to be the battle of what's going to happen. Who's going to get the most points, and then you have Nuogo, who's pretty much going to match up with Ralph Lumley, who's practically going to get most of the points, who's pretty much going to try to rally in.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays in with the rebounding for sure. I think the team who can rebound in this one certainly takes home the dub, because we've seen these teams on both sides of any of their matchups this season. Whenever they have dominated the boards, those teams usually have had pretty good games. I could see that being the situation here, or it could be a situation where literally it's even on the boards, and then who is really chucking it from the cheap seats. So this is an interesting 2-7 matchup. I'm curious to see how it goes. Let's jump ahead to the next game. Duke is your number 3 seed coming out of the ACC, 6-3. I think some people might have expected a little bit more Duke out of there from their win-loss record, but had some nail-biters along the way that they lost. And they are going to take on, out of Conference USA, the 3-6 Murray State Racers. Duke's been explosive all season. Their high-powered offense has been phenomenal, despite a couple of one-point losses from LSU twice on 2 occasions this season. Murray State's been tough out for anybody that has placed them. I can't see Duke losing this one. I think there's too much depth for Murray State to handle, but the Racers are obviously going to do everything in their power more. What's your breakdown on this game?
It's practically going to be Max Mudshuffle versus Wakambi, but if you go down through this roster, you pretty much have Billy Mason versus Alvin Iverson, which is pretty much going to be who's going to get out in space, who's going to try to juke the other one to get points. And then you have Kobe Maddox probably going to be trying to get everybody out. He's mostly the other guy. When I see him, it's practically, okay, he needs to get into space to actually shoot the ball. And versus a big team like Duke, he's not going to have that many chances. So look for him to pass it a little bit more and try to come away with it. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one to figure out how Murray State's going to be in it. But I think it's pretty much going to be close because they've already matched up battling each other out.
Yeah,
Make...
Murray State Moore, I think this season has shown that they can kind of run with anybody. I think where they're gonna struggle is depth because I think Duke is deeper. But Murray State has played, despite sitting at 3-6, have played pretty well this season. They've had one or two games where they just didn't fare too well, but it'll be interesting to see if they have the ability to run with the Blue Devils. We'll have to wait and see. I'm interested in this next matchup a lot for a variety of reasons. Let's jump into the next in the 4 and 5s. If I can find them on the sheet here. Yes, here they are. So coming in out of the Big 12 at 5 and 4, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Great season by the Red Raiders. A little bit up and down at times. And they are going to take on, also having an up and down season, the 4 and 5 Villanova Wildcats. So 4 versus 5, you have Texas Tech and Villanova. Again, these four versus 5 matches are super exciting. Tech has some really impressive games this season, as has Villanova, but inconsistency by both teams and depth scoring has been difficult at times. A deep postseason run might only happen if someone actually gets hot here from these two teams. Who will it be? Honestly, I don't know. J.J. Song has been the go-to guy, as well as Boris Pavlov, while Villanova has relied on Devi Turner and Jimmy Chitwood Jr. Whoever takes it home will have a very tough next round game in Oregon, but it'd be interesting to see which one here pulls through more. What's your take on this matchup? How do you see it playing out?
Oh, you got Texas Tech with the 300 monster with South Stern, Tito Dethers, and Jafari Kaida. Jafari Kaida being that mostly defensive matchup. But it's going to be tough to see how Buddy Hoyle's defense coming out with all these blocks, getting three blocks per game. It's going to see who's going to have the mostly defensive matchup and who's going to come out. But most of it is going to be a tight battle. Because I would be interested to see who's going to be shooting more from the shooting guard. Because most of it is kind of going back and forth. All these matchups are pretty much close to it. I mean, you have Debbie Turner versus Dow Stone. Then you look at it, you have Aldo Medici versus J.J. Song. Then you're going to have like Jimmy Shipper Jr. coming off with going up against Pavlov. So it's going to be that shooting guard spot with Vila Durango, who probably gonna be shooting a lot more to complicate on Villanova.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is going to be an interesting 4-5. I think all the 4-5s really interesting on how they played out. Let's get a little bit of thoughts from the committee, from our crew here. Rise, talk to me a little bit about this wet Midwest bracket. Anything that jumps out at you, any matchups you're really interested in seeing?
Oh, I think that Texas Tech Villanova game is going to be amazing. That can't wait to watch that. Second of all, quack. Third, I like to see that Duke Murray State game too because I think Murray State could shock everybody.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one for sure. Zay, what's your take on this bracket? Anything that jumps out at you from a path perspective?
This might be like one of the first hot takes of the night, but I'm riding with the upset on this one with Marquette and San Diego State. San Diego State has had a tough season. They played us pretty tough in the tournament as well. They played a couple other teams pretty tough. They had a tough conference as well with Gonzaga and Arizona State. They're pretty battle tested. I think they can take down a team like Marquette in the first round.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. C-Web, really quickly, anything that you really like about this bracket, or do you see a path forward for any particular team?
The thing I'm excited about is, Say touched on it. San Diego State and Marquette, having played San Diego State twice myself, they gave us a pretty good battle. Being the 7th seed, giving the number 1 overall seed 2 pretty good games this season. definitely think Marquette has their work cut out for them, as does Duke. I think Murray State has come on. I think they could shock this thing, and I wouldn't even be surprised to see a 6-7 matchup in the second round there.
Yeah.
The other side, I mean, Oregon has got a pretty clear path to the Final Four, I think, through this um, through this bracket. The only team that I think can really give them fits might be Duke. I know Marquette is the 2 seed, but I think Duke is probably the next strongest team in this bracket that could take down Oregon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I kind of see Oregon rolling through this conference, but listen, if it's Oregon, it maybe even Marquette the way they've played all season. I could see maybe Marquette making that deep run, but these first round games there's definitely some scariness in these first round matchups. Once you get past those first round matchups, I think the what quote unquote higher seed has a little bit of an easier path to either get towards that final game. So it'll be interesting to see how the Midwest breaks out. I want to say congratulations on a good season, obviously, for the teams that you might not think this necessarily with their records, but certainly we're giving it their all season long, and that's the 4 teams that did make it: the USC Trojans, the Wichita State Shockers, the Texas Longhorns, and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Certainly those teams, there were a lot of close games that those teams did play in. Unfortunately, just not racking up the wins certainly saw them out on the outside. But we appreciate, obviously, the efforts that those teams put in. I know for Texas was probably a little bit of a bubble team. It definitely did come down to them and Ohio State. I think Ohio State actually getting to the Big Ten championship game certainly helped their causes over Texas. So I think that's kind of the reason why we saw them get in and Texas not get in. So interesting scenario and kind of how that all played out. Let's jump in to the number 1 seeds. Here are your tournament number 1 seeds. Again, Gonzaga 9-1, Kentucky 8-2, Arkansas 7-2, and Oregon 9-1. Guys, I want to get your all take on these number 1 seeds. How far do you think they can go? And that, out of these 4 number 1s, or out of just the brackets in general, do you see these guys making it deep runs into the dance? We'll start with you, Zay. What's your thoughts on these number 1 seeds? Do you think the committee got it right?
For the most part, I think they got it right. I think these are the 4 that I went with as well when I went with mine. I think I like Gonzaga and Kentucky's routes to the Final Four. The other 2 are the ones that I'm kind of iffy on. Like you said before with Oregon, we still have Duke and as well as Marquette in there as well. I feel as though those teams can give Oregon fits depending on who they match up with. And then Arkansas, especially if Notre Dame makes it to that second round, they've had trouble with them when they played them previously in the season as well. It's just they could get fits later on in the later halves if they end up playing someone from that bottom half. So yeah, I think those are the 2 that might have trouble, but I like these 4.
Rise, what's your take, Rise? Do you have similar thoughts here?
So I want to say something first. I saw something in the chat. Killer Skriller, congratulations on your daughter.
Oh yeah, shout out to Killer Skriller. That's awesome, man.
Shout out to him. But I think the committee definitely did get this right 100%. I think the number 1 team that is going to make the deepest run out of these 1 seeds, and I will preach it to the choir till the day I die, the Oregon Ducks. They have had the best season so far, in my opinion. I think they have the chance to win it all.
Mort, what's your take, bud? What's your take?
I always think that the committee got it right, but the one thing is Arkansas did not win the conference tourney. Kentucky did. The one thing I put in is Marquette over Arkansas, but based off of what Arkansas did inside the regular season, I can understand why the committee decided to give the number 1 spot to Arkansas. They had a really good year. They just came up short during the SEC conference, and it went way for them, especially that last game. But they can just brush that off and try to focus on March Madness. And the one team I would think would pretty much go through all the way through is probably gonna be Gonzaga. I mean, the only thing I would probably say would give him fit would be South Carolina or maybe Kansas. But Gonzaga is probably gonna be the one that's gonna go all the way through.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Kai Avery just said Arkansas has the hardest region. I think. I mean, they are technically the fourth number one seed, so they always have the hardest route. I think you have a really great take there, more on the whole Arkansas versus being a number one seed, considering they didn't win the SEC. I think for me, I saw Arizona State there, but like to your point, you saw Marquette there. Marquette was 9-1. A lot of it came down to strength of schedule, certainly matchups along the way, and how teams performed late in the season. See, Webb, what's your breakdown though? Like, where do you see this? And obviously, I know Gonzaga is your team here, but did the committee get it right, and who do you see going on a run here objectively?
So I had Arizona State over Arkansas as my, number 4 1 seed. And the ironic thing is, I think Arkansas would have had an easier path had they gotten the 2 seed, because they're stuck in a bracket that has a lot of unpredictable teams. They've got Arizona State to contend with. Like they're literally getting the hardest path through for any of these teams. I think Gonzaga, yeah, you can see it here. Like it Arkansas, Indiana, and Notre Dame, all 3 of those teams. I mean, I'm not really sure who's going to make it out of that.
I like, if you think about it from this perspective, Arkansas does get they'll only, let's assume that they get by Indiana or Notre Dame in that second round, right? If you look at the way this kind of sets up, if they get by there, they either have to face Michigan or Arizona State, assuming that the higher seed gets through, right? It's just an assumption based on the way these teams have played this season. They're 2 of the best. This is a tough bracket, to your point, but you get to the I think it's the Elite 8 here. You're going to either be facing a Michigan or an Arizona State, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to net out. We always see upsets, and certainly we've seen teams, as you know and well, see Webb, go on as you're the upset king. We've seen that happen for how many seasons where we've seen a run by a seed that we wouldn't have totally thought that that's where they would have gone. So,
yeah, and I mean, if I'm looking at the 4 number 1 seeds, if that's your final 4, I think it's probably going to be Gonzaga, Oregon in the title game. I think Oregon matches up better with Kentucky, ironically, than we did. That's our 1 loss on the season, so I'd kind of like to avoid playing them.
Well, the ironic part is Gonzaga was part of the Pac-12 too previously, right? I mean, if you think about it, you guys have a lot of experience having played Oregon in the past. Obviously, you guys moved to West Coast Conference this season, but we've always had Gonzaga in the Pac-12. So it's interesting that if that was the way it was to come down, it'd be facing an old foe for sure. So I know you guys have played each other a ton of times and have a good scouting report on how each other plays. So that would be an interesting scenario. All right, real quick, everybody, give me your final 4 predictions. Let me put you on screen capture here. Hold on 1 second. So that we can all... And I'm actually going to write these down, by the way, because I'm curious to see where everybody is. All right, Zay, you're on the clock first. Give me your final 4.
I need to look at the bracket again.
I can't. I don't
need to look at the bracket.
I didn't. You know what? It's hard for me to do that. So what I will do for you guys really quickly is I will screenshot it for you in our discussion for the prep. So I'll scare this. Give me 30 seconds, guys, and you guys will have this. There it is, your screenshot. There you go. So now you can see it. So everybody else can't see that, but we can. So.
Like I was saying before, I like Gonzaga going there. Although I'm in that bracket too, but even if we make it that far, I feel as though they have more depth than us, so I feel as though they'll take it.
No, you got Gonzaga out of the West. Who you got coming out of the South?
Dang, the South. I think it's gonna be between Kentucky and Virginia Tech. I feel as us that's where it's gonna net out.
What do you
Yeah.
got? What do you got out of the Midwest?
I have Duke coming out of that one. I'm not even gonna lie. I like Duke there. They're a very good defensive team. The only losses they had, they only lost. They haven't lost by double figures at all.
Yeah.
And the matches they did win, they won pretty convincingly.
What about out of the East?
For the East, that's also a tough one. I like Arizona State out of that one, or either them or Arkansas, one of those two.
And who's your national champion?
Gonzaga.
All right,
I think
Mort.
they finally put it together and make it through this time.
Mort, give me your Final Four and your champion.
I got Gonzaga, Michigan. Then I take I take Virginia Tech, and then Oregon. And then inside the championship game, it's gonna be Gonzaga and Oregon. And sorry, Webb, I'm going with Oregon.
Oh, he's going against you. See, Webb, give me yours. We'll do Rise, and then I'll do mine.
I don't like front running myself, but I am gonna pick Gonzaga.
Yeah, I mean,
we beat the number 2 seed in this bracket already this season. So
I have no problem with you picking Gonzaga. You guys are strong this season.
Logic dictates I should.
Unless somebody pulls the old Syracuse on you.
I'm worried about that Florida State game if it happens. I know Larry's gonna pull something on me. Anyway, okay, so
He'll be asking you for your game plan.
Yeah.
Give me a game plan to play against you guys. Who you got? South, yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to take Kentucky. I think Kentucky goes through. I will say Virginia Tech, I think, has a shot. I just don't know that they match up with Kentucky as well. I think they're built similar to us, and Kentucky could give them fits.
I can see that.
Midwest, I've got Oregon, but again, Oregon-Duke, I think, is going to be the Elite Eight game, and that's going to be an exciting one. And, man, for the East, God, I just don't know. I actually think Arizona State probably is going to come through there, and I feel like it's going to be a Gonzaga-Arizona State Volume 3 in the Final Four, with probably us playing Oregon, and I'm going to take Oregon because I don't want to curse myself.
Definitely should have taken your team. Rise. Talk to me, buddy. What's your final four?
This is the hot take of the night. These are the hot takes of the night. So we're gonna obviously go with Gonzaga. Ohio State, I love you. It's not gonna happen. Out of the East, I'm gonna go Arizona State. I think that Arkansas team is good. I think it's great. I do not see that happening, beating that Arizona State team, or even making it past Indiana. I don't see it happening. In the Midwest, I'm obviously gonna have to go with the Ducks here. I think they're the most dominant team. They're also going to be my national champions, and I will fully admit that.
You still need to give me your South picks. I know that we got the Ducks.
Give me Providence.
Wow, going on. All right. I can respect that.
All
right.
Defense going to carry them, huh?
And Wired. These are the Wired hot takes. All right, I got Gonzaga winning that region hand down. Just I think that's a consensus for everybody. No offense to anybody else that's in that bracket, but I just see the Zags. I can see the Zags just kind of running through there. They will have a couple of hiccups of games that are close, but I think they will ultimately end up. In the southern region, I am actually going against the grain here. I'm going away from everybody that has picked here. I'm actually going to go with Houston here. X-Face has done a phenomenal job with that team. I think Houston is a juggernaut when it comes to the offense. I think you see Houston and Kentucky coming down to the finals in that region, but I think Houston sneaks away with the win. I think Virginia Tech has been good at times this season, but is beatable. And I just see Houston coming out of that South region. Coming out of the Midwest, Sorry, Ducks. I am against you guys. I'm not against you guys personally, obviously. But for that region, I've got Duke coming out of the Midwest. I just see them eventually meeting up with Oregon and taking Oregon down. And then in that Eastern region, again, going against the Green, I'm going to be the only one that's actually going to pick them. I'm taking Michigan.
Just hold on.
I'm taking Michigan out of the East. I will say though, your winner, in my opinion, is going to be Gonzaga. Those are my
Well,
final.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. So, Mort, did you pick? Oh, you did. Well, I didn't pick Virginia Tech. I picked Duke, and I also picked Houston. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun bracket. I think the committee did a really good job. I think we really didn't have to rejigger the bracket much this year, which was nice. I don't think there was any rejiggering, if I'm going to be completely honest. But make sure you guys tune in for these games. They're all going to be broadcast. Obviously, we have our high school championship game tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for that as well. So if you're a high school coach, make sure, and you're in the championship, make sure you get your game plans in tonight for tomorrow. Guys, any final words, thoughts, takes, anything you want to go out on a limb on and just throw it out here right now in the last little bit of the round table here before we sign off? Go left to right. Zay.
Get cocky.
I like it. Csba.
Those Zags. I know I didn't pick us, but
Rise.
yeah.
Rise, what you got?
Quack Quack and Monteverde we trust.
Oh, look at that. I love it. A little high school shout out there, too. Mort, talk to me, bud.
Congrats to everybody that got in. It's been a great thing. But the one thing I want to say is that I do not think Arkansas wants to go up against Notre Dame.
Interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. We thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate your continued support. I know for me, you guys are a huge part of what drives me every day to push the CSBA to new limits. We're obviously going to do a lot of new things next season, adding to it. Hopefully we can get on 2K25 by season 13. But there is a lot to look forward to in this postseason. I love how the bracket's shaped up. They may be looking for DMs from me to players that we're unsure about remaking for next year. Just be on the lookout. Obviously, I take rejection well if that is where you end up. But obviously, I am somebody that is going to lean in and try to get you to come back. So obviously, there is that blue chip reward. I think there's I forget what it ended up being, but there was if you refer somebody that is a blue chip for next season, there's a reward. It was posted in league announcements. So a lot of cool things coming, but obviously we have a great tournament coming. Congratulations to all the number one seeds. Congratulations to everybody that made the tournament. Again, pouring one out for the teams that did make it, but we continue to appreciate your support. Obviously, tune in because we do know that players transfer, so having an idea of next season's transfer portal and what teams, there's going to be changes. We're going to announce the season 12 coaches coming up hopefully by next week. So a lot of things to look forward on the CSBA front. We appreciate you all for tuning in. We appreciate your support. And let's have a great season 11 March Madness. I'm excited for it. Hopefully you guys are too. For Zay, C-Web, Rise, more appreciate you guys for being in the stream here tonight. And everybody that tuned in, CSB out.